So just take a moment to acknowledge that you showed up to this activity, you know, kind of get settled in your seat. Kind of notice where your mind is, what you're drawn to. And really take a moment to try to let go of whatever you were just doing. Let go of what you might be doing in the future. And just bring your awareness to being present right now. And generate a motivation for how you're, for the reason why you showed up. And generating a positive motivation for how you plan to use your time. And making the wish that however you spend your time, that it not just benefits yourself, but that it's going to ripple out to benefit those around you. So I'll put up the prayers. Let's see. So for those of you who are comfortable reciting the refuge prayer, I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By the merits I create through listening to the Dharma, may I become a Buddha in order to benefit all sentient beings. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By the merits I create through listening to the Dharma, may I become a Buddha in order to benefit all sentient beings. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By the merits I create through listening to the Dharma, may I become a Buddha in order to benefit all sentient beings. Now we'll recite the 4 immeasurables. If you're new to this, 4 immeasurables are, really 4 measurable minds. We're trying to develop minds, or at least to think in a way that is very spacious. So we're thinking about wishing the best for all sentient beings, all living beings. So may all sentient beings have happiness and the causes of happiness. May all sentient beings be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. May all sentient beings be inseparable from the happiness that is free from suffering. May all sentient beings abide in equanimity, free from attachment for friends and hatred for enemies. So how are we doing this week? We've been discussing forgiveness for the last couple of weeks. Joy, you have your hand raised. Nope. Okay. And so this is one of the pillars of joy, is forgiveness. And we talked a lot about the need for self-forgiveness as well as forgiving others. This was preceded by our conversations about, perspective. I have to remember them now. Perspective and humor and humility and what are the other ones? All right. Why is it you think you know them and then you realize, no, I don't. So, oh boy, perspective, humility, humor, acceptance. Oh, that's an interesting one to forget. And then forgiveness. And this is leading us up to gratitude. So, but first I want to see how's forgiveness going. Any more thoughts about it? Or
I've been having a great difficulty of forgiveness.
I'm sorry?
I have very difficulty the last 4 weeks about forgiveness. I've been trying really hard and I had really bad emotions, but I'm getting there little by little.
It's a very, very difficult process with large circumstances. That it's one thing to forgive someone for getting something off your list at the grocery store, but they're, which we really shouldn't even have to forgive, right? We should just accept mistakes. But, but it's this, forgiveness is not so easy. But it's a possibility, just knowing it's a possibility. I always come back to this, the story of Ray Hinton about, but he was in prison for 30 years wrongly, that he was innocent, and then he was finally proven innocent. And so they asked him if the journalist who, were talking to him when he got out, if he was angry about it, and his response was basically that, if I'm angry and unforgiving about it, then not only did they take those 30 years, but they take the rest of my life. And I just think that's such an important thing to kind of keep in our minds, this idea that there is really something of benefit to ourselves to be able to not hold on to whatever it is that has harmed us. The story around it, the thoughts around it, all of that it really does deprive us of our lives, every moment that we spend, and the truth is every moment we spend clinging in whatever way that is, whether it's attachment or aversion or anger or, not forgiving or, resentment, all of these things that are what we call disturbing emotions, or agitating, like desirous attachment where we're just really clinging to a totally unrealistic idea of something, that those every moment that we spend like that is not experiencing existence as it actually is. So we're missing our lives, so it's a very interesting thing to think about. Just what does, how clinging, that holding something, beyond the experience of the moment is really a distraction from the moment. So it's a very, you can see how successful practitioners, how they're more spacious and more light. There's a lightness because, they're not, weighed down by all the things they're clinging to, So it's it's worth the effort we make to try to let go of these unskillful habits. So following forgiveness is the pillar of gratitude. So what is one of the distinctive differences, or the glaring difference, of course it may just be glaring to me, between, not forgiving and gratitude? What is not forgiving focusing on?
Me. Me, and how I've been hurt.
Okay. Deborah?
I really see it as having ongoing expectations that weren't met, which result in the anger and frustration and sadness and difficulty forgiving. And I struggle with this enormously, but I really think the base of it is our own my own expectations.
And what are we focusing on?
That our expectations weren't met in the way we desired.
Weren't met. It's the not getting what we want. What is gratitude focusing on?
Looking at what you have and being grateful for it.
It's what we have. It's not the not. It's the, so, there's a very different focus. So forgiving is also sort of letting go of not getting, or getting something you don't want. So it's this, and gratitude is an attitude that really is focusing on what's good, what's working, what we're happy about. Yes, Bobby.
So I get stuck in between, depending on the severity of the injustice of, I'm able to forgive and accept in some somewhat severe cases, but the anger is still there for the fact of what actually happened or what this person did to somebody else.
Well, I challenge you to explore the possibility, if you're still angry, you haven't forgiven. You may have moved on or something. You're not throwing it in their face every day or something, but if you're still angry, then you're still holding on to the event. So in one of the classic stories, they talk about two monks coming to a river, or a stream, I should say, getting ready to cross the stream. And there's a woman there who is struggling to cross the stream. So one of the monks picks her up and carries her across to the other side and puts her down, and she goes on her way. And the monk who did not help turned to the monk that did help and say, "What are you doing? You're not supposed to touch a woman, blah, 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 blah." And just going on and on and on and on and on about how he was, not keeping his vows purely by, having, touched this woman, So, and then I guess he went, he told the Sangha about it, But the other monk said, "Yes, I may have carried that woman over the river, but you're still carrying that woman. I've let it go." There is this, anything that we're holding firmly and carrying with us, this is that clinging, whether it's a pleasant experience or an unpleasant experience, but our clinging to it, gives us this opportunity to fabricate a story around it, you know? And what do we do with that, you know, story? We usually justify our attitudes. You know, if we're angry or feel that there's injustice, then we just make, you know, our beliefs stronger, you know, and that's fine. I mean, we do need to make assessments. It's just really about, though, we don't just make an assessment about how something needs to be changed, or this act wasn't fair, or blah, 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 or this was harmful. We judge people and hold them accountable as if they cannot change, in a way in which or that they need punishment for having done something or have a different point of view, you know, or whatever, you know. It's just that we need to understand this holding on to something has the mind that clings is a problem mind right away. You know, it is instilling. Someone's mic is not off. Okay. So I think that, you know, when we talked about acceptance, you know, acceptance is part of this picture as well, you know, of accepting that something happened and not holding on to the idea that it should not have happened. It's already happened. It's happened. It's done. It's done. You know, that does not mean we can't take action to keep it from happening again. You know, I mean, this is why we change laws. This is why, you know, that we have systems to do this. Family, this is why there are family meetings sometimes, is that we want to, you know, correct some dynamic that's happening in the family that's not healthy, you know.
Or family divorce.
Or get a divorce. I mean, yeah, nothing, you know, forgiveness. I'm sorry, Martha. What?
From family. Get a divorce from the person that hurt you. No?
Well, you can choose that.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean you can't forgive them and still choose that. You can decide, you know, not to hold on to that, but use the information that says, okay, but I'm not going to continue this relationship. You know, they're two different acts. You know, they do not have to, you know, you can't just divorce Pinterest. I know this, that you don't forgive. It's just, you know, I mean, this is, you know, we can take an action. I can see we're not moving on from forgiveness today. So, so those of you who have missed the last couple of classes might want to watch them. But, you know, because we want to be able to make progress. And, you know, and forgiveness is a really tough one. Yeah, Graziella.
Well, I am sort of going to repeat what you said, but I never really got it this way. So I got a divorce, right? Mm-hmm. But if I hold on to the pain and even the divorce is good for nothing.
You might as well still be living with them.
Right, because I continue on with the pain. Yeah. So I just got it that I gotta forgive real quick everybody, because because it's really getting all this. I'm holding on to this negative energy, you know, that it's like almost urgent. Yeah, I never.
Well, yeah.
That way.
Well, and I think the experience of recognizing that, when we, like if we experience pain of a relationship that no longer exists, it is a clear evidence, it's clear proof it's coming from you. Because the other person's not there. This is not rocket science. But, we really need to understand that it is a choice. And we don't recognize this. We don't think it's a choice. We think it's a have to. Of course I still feel that pain, blah, blah, blah. But no, we're allowing it to continue by clinging in some way to what happened. By clinging, it's just not necessary. It doesn't mean that when we think back, although there's probably not much point in thinking back, but when we think about back, sure, it's going to stir up stuff, the pain of bad moments in relationships, But if we cling to those and then, like take that discomfort, and this is what I'm talking about with when you meditate and you try to be aware of the sensation. So you have this unpleasant sensation, or you experience a gut feeling as unpleasant, and it's because you're thinking back on some failed experience, and then you cling to it, then that discomfort becomes rage again. So then we've created it for ourselves, by repeating it mentally. So we want to be aware, if we can be aware of that discomfort and say, I don't think I'm going to think about this right now, because it's becoming a condition for me to fuel my resentment. Or it can be, yep, I haven't let go. And so you use it as an opportunity to work on that a little bit, But just because we feel discomfort doesn't mean that it's, somehow something that has to be, avoided. That's not the case. Peggy.
One tool that I've gained through studying Buddhism, and it's something that I've always believed in since I was a child, is karma. So if there's a situation where I might feel slighted, or my feelings are hurt, or something is going on in my mind, getting back to the cushion, it's, okay, what kind of seed did I plant for this to come about? And I am no longer a victim in anything. So it really, really helps tremendously.
Yeah, exactly. This is one of the things about understanding cause and effect, that we don't experience things that we didn't create the cause for. That's the teaching of the Buddha. One of the things that can make that, one of the obstacles to being able to just accept that and work with it, have it, is not being able to forgive the self. So you get yourself into this bind where you can't win. Because then you just go from, well, it's my fault again. So it just fuels. So we have to really see how we're thinking and recognize when we are taking a teaching in a direction that's not where it's meant to go. Karma is not about blame. So karma is this understanding, this hurt that I'm feeling now from this action of this, this other person or event, I've caused someone else to feel this way in the past. Wow, I don't like it at all. And I am really sorry I ever would have created this experience for someone else. Because, right now I can know how miserable it feels. And instead of turning that, unpleasant experience or painful experience, whatever range it is, of suffering, into this opportunity to, reaffirm your determination not to do harm towards others. Not to see, this other person that you see as the harm doer in this moment is somehow some, evil person, no, they're just someone acting out, in ways that since beginningless time they've learned, and it's not helpful, is it, their behavior? So they're creating the cause for their suffering in the future, so we can have compassion for them, compassion for ourselves, for the experience of suffering, compassion for ourselves that we still haven't figured out how to, get out of this suffering. But it's, instead of having events disconnect us, I mean, I'm not talking about, physically. I mean, we may walk away from relationships, that we often are quite wise to do so. But that sense of disconnection of humanity and of samsara, and just this acting as if they're not stuck in the same boat that you are, and that we can hate them for that. That's not really a skillful conclusion to draw. That doesn't help us. That makes it really possible to keep our feelings of anger or hurt, or whatever, being treated unjustly, really alive, And according to the teachings on karma, it's sort of this sense of, yes, maybe in this moment you didn't create the cause for this event, but that we are experiencing this because, in fact, we have done it to someone else in the past. That we've hurt someone in this way. Maybe not exactly like what we're experiencing now. Well, the hurt's probably the same, but the actions might be different. But it's but the more we hold on to this idea of, I'm sorry, I am not the source of my suffering, you are, we can't be free of it. We're giving all the power of the suffering to someone else's hand, and it's totally imaginary. It's not possible. We have the power, And one of the things about, our experiences being our own means that, yes, we suffer. We're stuck in samsara. We created the cause for suffering. We're still trying to figure it out. We still do harm. We still don't have the wisdom to accept reality as it is, or even to know what it is. So it's, it's a process of, it's like, some people refer to it as like every breath is a little death, it's just like, going through. But what that means is every breath, every in-breath is a birth, it's an opportunity, So one of the very basic things that, Buddhism teaches that we can be grateful for is, oh, I'm alive. I'm still in my human body. I'm still breathing, that this alone is enough to feel joy. Now, for those of us who, haven't quite gotten this idea that, oh my goodness, just being alive is enough. So, we have to learn how to believe that. It's sort of like, but that is part of recognizing, this is where thinking about our past can be helpful. Kind of just glancing back through the decades and realizing you've had all sorts of horrible events happen, and you're still here and you still have had all sorts of joys happen. But this is the way it is. Good things happen, bad things happen, that's not You know, there's no reason to allow that to determine how we experience existence. The more we can accept, good things happen, bad things happen, and it all changes, the less we carry around, you know, the past and hold it responsible for how, you know, who we are and how we feel. And it's ridiculous. We've changed so many times. You know, it's just a habit we have. And we truly, you know, there are many things in our culture that reinforce this habit. You know, we really, you know, believe that, oh, success is, you know, necessary. You know, and we have all sorts of ways of defining that. You know, that it's reasonable to, you know, take the best for your circle of concern. You know, the greed, I mean, what was it, you know, that old movie, Greed is Good, I think. So, you know, it's, you know, so it's really, it's this understanding that really, if we sit down, calm our mind a little bit, and use our ability to reason within our own minds, we can see ways to reduce our own suffering. We can see ways that it is a habit of mind that is, you know, creating more suffering. You know, for a long time when I was a teenager, I thought, you know, things that weren't fair, you know, how could I be happy? The world's not fair, you know, kind of thing. You know, yeah, the world's not fair. That is true. But, you know, the teachings on karma say, well, you know, things are the way they are because we are still doing body, speech, and mind that creates the cause for the way things are. That things do not just come out of nothing. It's a dependent arising. Yes, Ralph.
Brings a right full circle to gratitude, doesn't it? To be grateful that we have the ability to do that, to take action for remedy.
Yes, and have the, you know, physical, you know, that the human brain's really quite powerful, you know. So we have this, you know, capacity to use our mind in a very sophisticated way. You know, so we can be grateful for this kind of rebirth, you know, that we have this human mind. And we also have good conditions. So we have the time to spend kind of looking at things, to use our reasoning to change our habits of mind. And so this is something else to have gratitude for. And then we have helpers, you know. We have teachings, we have friends, we have family, you know, we have other people, you know, so community, because we're interconnected and interdependent. So we might as well make that an asset, not, you know, not something. And of course, now that we're all had to be a lot more isolated than we used to be, you know, we're starting to see the drawbacks, you know. This is one of those classic things of, you know, thinking, oh, I've just got to get away from all these people, you know, to, oh, now I'm away from all these people, I still have problems. I can't read messages while I'm teaching. It's too distracting. So, you know, if it's okay, I'm just letting you know. So some people can multitask. I'm not one of them. So this, did you want to say something, Martha? No, okay. So allowing our, you know, practicing a little gratitude every day can help us strengthen the skill of focusing on what's good, on what is working, on what is supporting us, you know? And sometimes we really have to dig deep. You know, we may have to think, you know, because there are times in our lives that are very, very challenging, you know, so we have to really think, well, I'm glad that, you know, I'm the one dealing with this because this person would have many more obstacles than I do. You know, so, you know, we have to, you know, it's like when I was taking care of, you know, or helping take care of my dad with Alzheimer's, it was sort of like, you know, not pleasant. It was really not pleasant. But at the same time, I was so glad I could do it. You know, because I, you know, otherwise, you know, that, you know, the people who, you know, like my stepmom would have had to do it by herself, or strangers would have had to, you know, maybe if they were even access to that. So, you know, I mean, sometimes we just, you know, we have to kind of think, well, I'm really glad because I care about this person. So I'm really glad that I can be there for them, even though it's not fun, you know. But because of my care and concern about this person, I'm glad that I'm here, you know. And it doesn't mean it's not hard. No. It's just, you know, that we can also look at, you know, really, do we want to trade places so we can just forget this person? Because that's what it involves. It means, oh, I'll just have to not, this person will have to just not exist for me to, you know, not be here helping, if you know what I mean. It's really convoluted, but anyway. So it's this process. Yes, Cecilia.
In that situation, I once read, and at least it helped to me to change the semantics from I have to do this to I get to do this. And it always helps.
Yeah, it really, and these are just changes in attitude. It's amazing how, you know, just even putting it in different words can help. It becomes a condition for our mind to loosen its grip on the habit we have, you know, and then eventually we develop a new habit. It's quite the process, you know. It's not like it's, it just happens overnight. I mean, it can with some things, really little things, or new situations that we haven't got ingrained habits operating. You know, but it's so doing things like, you know, working on those situations that we recognize we haven't developed the mind of forgiveness around. You know, if we just focus on that, you know, until we get it, you know, that's too hard and we won't probably succeed, you know. So we also want to bring in things, you know, that will help us, you know, be lighter, you know. So we think about gratitude. We think about, you know, the things we're really happy to have experienced, you know, what we can do. And sometimes, I mean, it can be, it's, you know, just as simple as taking a walk and going, wow, you know, that tree is really beautiful. You know, allowing yourself to have that experience. You know. Yeah, yes, Bobby.
Earlier, I think I might have misspoke or used the wrong word. I said I have forgiveness and acceptance, and I was thinking of something as extreme as someone who abused or molested a child. But you clarified it when somebody was speaking, I think, Graciela, about a divorce. You said discomfort. When I think of that extreme injustice, it's the discomfort that comes up for me, and probably not anger. So just using that, switching that word, or using that word of the discomfort will remain. Was very helpful to me. Thank you.
Yeah, because yes, I mean, the fact that terrible things, we do terrible things to each other, that's a fact, you know. So recognizing that the fact that that continues is never going to bring us pleasure, you know? And it doesn't mean we shouldn't work at trying to improve conditions so it doesn't happen to ourselves or others. All of that is skillful, you know, but holding on as if, you know, someone is evil for having ever deigned to even, you know, consider doing that is not understanding how our mind of not forgiving, you know, for an injustice in this life can be a mind that kills people because they think differently than we do in the next life. It's the, you know, it's the development of a mental habit that doesn't have wisdom present with it. You know, we let our anger and then we justify the anger, that anger, of course I'm angry, you know, it makes sense to be angry. Well, anger is a mind that wishes to harm. Eventually, you make it strong enough, then you just want to kill people that are doing this, you know, and that there'll just be people to take their place. You know, that isn't helpful. And we become that person, you know. And it's not, you know, it's so important, you know, to understand that to have compassion for people who have experienced horrible suffering, to have compassion for ourselves for the horrible suffering we have experienced, to have gratitude for not having terrible conditions in this life. But we want to use that gratitude as a stepping stone for not wasting this life. You know, I think about all the terrible things that have happened to me in my life, and I think, wow, but can I imagine experiencing those exact things as a refugee? You know, how much harder they would have been. You know, so it's just this, you know, understanding that bad things happen and no one is exempt. No, that's because we're stuck in samsara. This is what the Buddha is talking about when he says the samsara is the nature of suffering, you know? And it's not because it's a place, it's because we are stuck here through our actions of body, speech, and mind. And it's possible to change that. You know, and in the meantime, before we get out, it's not a place, but before, you know, we can improve our experience, you know, and focus on those things that help us work on our body, speech, and mind. We need support. We need a lightness. You know, if we wake up every morning and go, oh, I'm still, you know, can't, you know, I'm still a dysfunctional human being. That's not going to help. It's like, yeah, big surprise. You're not a Buddha yet. So, but if we can let go of clinging to this idea, I'm not a Buddha, if we can quit identifying with that, a path might be open to becoming a Buddha, you know? And we all have Buddha moments, you know? This is what's so wonderful. I mean, it's the teachings don't say that you are doomed to this experience of suffering. It says, listen, there are methods to change your habits of mind. From that, then we change our actions of speech and of body. So there's a way to stop this cycle of, you know, I don't know who entitled the course right now in the newsletter. It's in I can't even pronounce it. I know I didn't pick it. I can't spell it or pronounce it. I can't say it. Do you know what it is, Nicole? Can you pronounce it?
I think it's inexorable suffering.
I think,
Yes,
yeah, you know, like,
I had to look it up.
yeah, you know, so I really can't pronounce it. I keep trying. It's not going to come out. But anyway, so I was reading about, you know, according to the teachings, the reason why we can trust we have Buddha potential is that we have compassion, you know? And so I was reading this morning about studies on innate empathy, you know, how they show that children or babies, they've shown that babies, when they hear the crying of other babies, will start to cry unless what they're hearing is their own voice recorded. They don't cry if they hear themselves crying. So it really is a reaction to hearing the cries of another. You know, this is, you know, the foundation that we can rely upon that says, oh, we've got everything. We have the facility for everything we need to get out of suffering, to get out of these habits of causing suffering. You know, because we just need to strengthen our good qualities. We don't have to like create them. They already exist. We just need to practice them more so that they're stronger. And we need to recognize the habits of mind that are obstacles to that. So not having gratitude is an obstacle. You know, if we can't recognize the opportunities in our life for joy, for being, you know, rejoicing and, oh, you know, isn't this wonderful? It's hard to, you know, if we're just focused on, you know, what we don't get or what we get that we don't want, that is just reinforcing this me, this self-grasping me. And it's hard to think about others. And that blocks the avenue that the teachings say is the path to happiness. Well, so it isn't about not recognizing the state of things or not accepting the state of things and making up a fantasy world that doesn't exist. It's about not making up a fantasy world about what does exist. So, you know, bad or good. We exaggerate how bad it is. We exaggerate, you know, the pleasures of the stuff that we like. This habit of exaggerating on all parts of the continuum, you know, is an obstacle. It keeps us clinging. Nicole, did you want to say something?
Yes, Josie would like to say
Oh,
something.
yes, I see her hand raised now. She wasn't on my first, yes. Thank you, Josie. Go for it.
You just have to unmute, click on the microphone to speak. Josie, you see the little microphone in the corner with the red line through it? If you just click on that. Josie, do you see the microphone in the corner with the red line through it? If you click on that, it should unmute you. Oh, never mind, Venerable Tendron.
Okay.
Sorry.
I can't see everybody on one screen, so I'm not always aware of what's going on. And like I said, I'm not good at reading. This is this little tiny thing that says Josie raised hand, but I can't, I'm only seeing it now, but the very bottom of my screen, I'm not observant. So, okay. Does everybody have thoughts rumbling around their head? Would you like an opportunity to discuss those thoughts with others? You know, we can get really stuck on this idea that I can't forgive. And there are certainly things that will take a lot longer to work on than others, you know. But it's like my friend who really worked, you know, on anger. You know, that was really his practice, was working on his anger through Buddhism. And then, you know, when his son was killed by another guy in a bar fight, his first response to it was compassion for this kid who killed his son. And that came from his overcoming his habit of anger. You know, that he had worked on anger and was successful because he could really understand, you know, he could see the sameness of his son and this other young man that killed him. And, you know, could understand the cause and effect going on. You know, and so his response, you know, he's still, you know, he's, you know, deeply mourned the loss of his son, but he didn't use that event as an opportunity to hate someone or to be angry at someone, you know. I mean, he, you know, leads meditations and a course called Managing Anger in prisons. I mean, that's what he was, I mean, that's his volunteer work. And he's been doing it for a long time. And he'd been doing it for a long time when his son was killed, you know. So, I mean, it's, you know, we think that it's just not possible, but it is possible. We see examples of it all the time. What we don't recognize are what obstacles we have in our habits of mind that are preventing it. You know, what are we holding on to? And sometimes it's, you know, where our identity is there. I'm sorry, I'm someone who's been hurt. I'm badly, deeply wounded. You know, we're holding that as if it's, you know, as if we need to. You know. So being able to recognize that we harm each other, that's a fact of samsara. That's why we're stuck. Because we keep, you know, we haven't got it, that we really want to develop the determination to do no harm. Yes, Nicole.
Venerable Tendron, I have Josie on the phone. She wants to ask a question, so I'm going to try to put her on speaker. Josie, go ahead. Ask your question.
I'm had an accident about.
Can you hear her?
Not over you. Go ahead, Josie.
Because it left me with things I can't do. I can't take a bath for myself. I can't cut my nails. I can't cut my baby's nails. I've learned to do so many things for myself, but I get so frustrated and so angry with myself for not being able to do them, and I don't know if I ever will. And I've taken a lot of therapy. I just got to find another way of looking at it. I don't know how to do that. And I used to be so grateful for everything, and now I just don't find anything.
She had an accident. She broke both her wrists, and she's really dependent on people now.
Yeah. I'm very sorry you're experiencing that, Josie.
Did you hear? She said she doesn't.
She can hear. She's still on the Zoom class, right? Okay. Yeah, when we're facing really difficult circumstances and letting go of our identity as someone who wasn't suffering from that, you know, going from being able to do things to not being able to do things, you know, is you know, affects us on so many layers of our identity. We hold ourselves to be capable. And having then, you know, we in a country that really prides itself on independence, the thought that we are now totally dependent on others can be very hard to bear. You know, so it's really about, you know, trying to not see ourselves as just someone who can do, but just someone who is. There can be space, you know, to let go of an identity that really is always changing, because we were dependent on for everything in this very life when we were babies. You know, and if we live long enough, many of us will become completely dependent on others just through old age. In the meantime, there are all sorts of things that happen that can cause us to be much more aware of how dependent we are on others. But dependency is not a weakness. It's not something to feel ashamed about. It can be frustrating, you know, because we can't do things right when we want to, because we're not the one who can fulfill the things we want. But it's really about trying to have compassion for ourselves for this change, because this is a suffering of change. You know, you were able to do things and now you're not. So it's really this accepting of that with compassion and kindness, of understanding, yeah, boy, this sucks. You know, it is really, really difficult. But it is not who you are. You haven't become a different kind of person, a worthy person. You're no longer, you know, we think we have to be deserving, you know, but just because we exist, we are worthwhile. You know, we are not worth more just because we can be independent. That's not correct. So it can be helpful to think about people that you like and to picture them not being able to do things. And would that change your feeling towards them? You know, we don't have to be grateful for our difficult circumstances in the sense of, you know, we don't have to like it. You know, but it's understanding that it's not alone in determining whether or not we can have peace of mind within us. It really, our feeling, our mental attitude of peace is inner. It's an inner state. And we have this belief that it is dependent upon outer conditions, but it isn't. It just looks that way. But we can develop inner peace even with terrible circumstances. But it's a matter of being able to look for different ways, look within, you know, for a different way of managing. You know, it's like this idea that being dependent is somehow negative. You know, do we think babies are, you know, worthless because they're dependent? No. You know, do we think they're hard work? Yes, it's hard work. Would we stop loving someone we care for just because they could no longer do something? You know, these are the kinds of things we need to look at when it's ourselves in that change. And it's not remotely easy, but it is about not equating what we can or cannot do with our worth or how others will perceive us. Some people walk away from difficult situations. You know, that's why we have expressions like, oh, now I know who my friends are, you know. But that's just showing that, you know, we're not Buddhas yet. And so different conditions, people respond to them different ways, not necessarily helpful ways. So we may have to let go of some people in our lives, or they may let go of us. But again, you know, it doesn't have to, you know, permeate our mind. We can dwell on everything that we can't do or what has changed and see it as, you know, that it's just, that's it. Stay stuck there. Or we can have compassion for ourselves, compassion for others who are in the same boat, and then start to look at something else, not dwell in that. So it's about finding what uplifts the heart that you are able to do. You know?
Venerable Tendron?
Yes.
And I also believe when I'm given the opportunity I'm giving an opportunity when someone asks me for help.
Oh, yeah.
They are creating the opportunity for me. Okay. And, you know, so, you know, if somebody needs, it's taken a long time for me to get to that point, to the understanding that they're creating for me.
Yeah. Yes. I mean, this is the gift of, you know, it's like generosity can only work if there are people who need things. We can't develop our generosity if no one needs anything. We can't develop our patience if everybody's perfect and we get everything we want. We can't develop our kindness if, you know, no one needs anything. It's a real gift. And I understand that it's something that we can resist, but this is that interconnectedness, this interdependent, because the idea that we're independent is a myth. We are absolutely not independent. We rely, and this is one of those things, is so if you get yourself into a state where you feel like no one depends on others as much as I do, really think about that, because it's not correct. You know, you think about everything that you rely upon, from your clothes to the furniture to the, you know, food in the refrigerator to the food not in the refrigerator to the, you know, the house, the walls, the bedding, the chair, you know, whatever it is. Countless beings were involved in the construction of that you're using. And we depend on that. You know, the people in the frontier days who were striking out on their own, had to cut down their own trees, build their own houses, you know, plant their own food, find food, shoot food, you know, all that stuff. They learned it from someone. They relied on their teachers. They relied on their capacity to figure things out. We are interdependent. Yes, Robert.
Yeah, if you can clarify one thing, then I think I have a follow-up question. What did you say originally to Josie, that you can't identify with a person that was before because that person doesn't exist? I'm sorry, what did you say?
Yeah, I don't know exactly what I said, but it's this idea that this is one of the things that trips us up when this is part of this idea that we grasp at a self. Because we hold a self to be some sort, if this self that we're grasping at, we imbue with this kind of permanence that, you know, and so when dramatic change occurs, it can really throw us because we see ourselves a certain way. Oh, I'm someone who can do this. And the thought of not being that person is really hard for us to shift, but that just reflects a habit we have of clinging to things as being permanent.
So since identities, obviously nothing's permanent, I mean, do we even have an identity? I mean,
no,
okay.
There's no identity to grasp onto, but this is our habit. And yes, we do it not just for ourselves, we grasp at a habit of an identity of others. And so when they change, we're thrown, you know? So it isn't obviously, we have attributes, we have parts, we can think, you know, but this self is just a name given to this ever-changing, you know, dependent arisings, you know? And so when one part of that ceases to function in the way we've become accustomed to it functioning, because when you think about it, babies couldn't walk, and then they walk. And then someone gets hurt and they can't walk again. You know, I mean, it's ever changing. But our habit of clinging and grasping at, you know, things to be permanent, you know, like, it's like this idea that, you know, we all know we're going to die, but not today. That doesn't even make sense. You know, and it causes us suffering. And it isn't that the suffering that we experience, we should just get over it. No, we should use it as a condition to really want to become liberated from suffering. If there's a way to end it, I mean, that's, you know, pretty much was my self-centered motivation between compassion and this idea, oh, if there's a way to end suffering, you know, hey, count me in. Now, you know, I'm not there yet. I'm nowhere close yet. I'm closer than I was. But it's just sort of like, hey, you know, so it's this, you know, we want to use the truth of suffering as a way to fuel us to trying to develop the method for the truth to the end of suffering. And it's all about our minds and how we respond to things and how we interpret them and how we hold on to ideas that aren't correct. You know, we need to just look at the way we're thinking and feeling and experiencing things and recognize, oh, okay, there's a trap here that I'm creating for myself. And one of them is, you know, not accepting that there's change. You know, the fact that some changes are way harder to experience than others doesn't change the fact that if we accept it, truly had a realization of impermanence, we wouldn't be thrown, no matter what, how severe the change is. We've been allowing our happiness or our contentment, our day-to-day okayness, to depend on a false idea of permanence. So when that becomes, you know, clearly not true, we struggle. But if we develop a realization of impermanence where we know impermanence, not just intellectually get it, you know, we will experience existence differently and we will suffer less because of it. In the meantime, we have to use our reasoning to, when we're, you know, overcome by just strong suffering, where we're just, you know, that things are really tough, we have to really allow ourselves the space, you know, to settle down a bit and use our reasoning to understand that, yes, these things have changed, and yes, it's sad that I'm having to experience this at all. And it's sad for the people who depended on me to do things that I can no longer do, you know, all that kind of thing. But then be able to understand that there, you know, that you have worth. You're a future Buddha, you know. Yes, Ralph.
Listening to you speak, Venerable Tendron, today, I'm just, and actually over the past couple of days I've been thinking about this as well. It's the feelings. It's the feelings that are creating all this samsara. I mean, it almost seems like feelings equals samsara. And I'm at the point now where I'm thinking, okay, F feelings. I just don't want to feel anymore. You know, it's almost getting to that point. I don't.
Well, it's your conceptions. It's not the feeling itself. A feeling is just pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral. It's your story around the feeling. We create stories. You know? And it is the state of the world. Is you know, samsara is the nature of suffering. It is horrific. You know, we don't want to be blind to that. We just don't want to be dysfunctional in the face of it. We want to be able to function. Somebody's talking.
That was me. I'm sorry. I thought you had paused there. So in the meditation earlier, when you were asking us to label good, bad, neutral, essentially, right? Something felt good or it felt bad or it felt neutral. Even in that meditation, I was questioning, well, isn't it the labeling, as you just suggested, the story around it that is causing?
No, that's just is. Pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral. Then we create a story. We have the experience, but you know, even our experience can change. When we become really skilled at being able to distinguish between the sensation or the event and the feeling that responds to it, and then be able to understand, you know, this is why bodhisattvas can be delighted with difficult situations, because it has become a condition for them to think, another way I can get closer to enlightenment, because I'll be able to work on, you know, using this terribly difficult situation is going to, you know, provide the circumstances for me to work with my mind in a whole new way, you know? So it becomes, you know, so that we actually do see the condition differently. But it's not that we don't have this experience of pleasant. We gravitate to pleasant, which, you know, is not stupid. You know, the trouble is we think happiness is there, and that's the mistake. We mistake enjoyment for some concrete happiness. And then we think, oh, well, every time I get that, I'll be, you know, that would be better. And it's just wrong. Our experience is just an opportunity.
But as you guided us, this is Anthony, responding to this feeling versus the sensations, even the sensations can be interpreted sometimes as negative or unpleasant.
Yeah, but no, that's a judgment.
Right.
Well,
so I'm saying it's not. I mean, even the sensations themselves
No, it's not the sensations themselves. The sensations themselves are just a sensation.
Exactly. That's what all I'm trying to say. And that other layer of feeling is already a sort of a judgment or a choice to see it.
I'm not sure it's a choice. It may be a choice.
Mm-hmm.
But physical feelings, there are pleasant physical feelings, there are unpleasant physical feelings. Now, our mental response to that, because there's also mental feelings, there's more
it's been my experience personally that some sensations I can, in some conditions they're experienced in a pleasant way, and other conditions in a unpleasant way.
Yeah, and I think that that's based on something else. You know, it's like when we learn that when you work out, if you want to be effective at working out, you have to feel it. And at first it feels unpleasant, you know, and then we go, oh, good, but it's still unpleasant. You know, so it's just, it's, you know, but it's, the key here is not drawing conclusions by the experience of pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral. That's not enough. That's not enough information.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
You know, but we treat it as if it is. It's a conclusion. Oh, it's pleasant. I must want more of that. And it's not true. You know, as we all know, when we've eaten that extra piece of something and gone, oh yeah, now we've gone from pleasant to not unpleasant. You know, so it's not the object. So it's just, you know, these are very subtle. And this is why it's so helpful to spend a lot of time, you know, developing the skill of being able to discern what your awareness is noticing. Not just what you're thinking about it, but really being able to be aware of the awareness. Because this is how we can learn to choose to respond differently to our experience. You know, just because an experience may, you know, be unpleasant doesn't mean it's not good for us, you know, so we decide, oh, well, that's all right. Or sometimes you know, you go to the doctor and say, you know, I'm finding that this really hurts, you know, and they go, well, that's just arthritis. You know, the exercise really does help, so you're just going to have to ignore the pain because that's not going to go away. But if you don't exercise, you're going to have more arthritis or whatever they tell you. You know, I mean, so it's about, we learn things, you know, and bodhisattvas have learned that difficult circumstances, difficult people, you know, are an opportunity to really cultivate their good qualities and get closer to enlightenment in order to be able to benefit all sentient beings. You know, that this is, so it just changes our, you know, but but right now when we're not bodhisattvas and we're not Buddhas, you know, we need to just develop our observation and our awareness, our inner stuff, and then start to see, okay, when I think about that, I go to this direction. I decide that, you know, is that, and then we have to, is it true? Is our habitual reaction to an experience valid? Or is it just something we do?
Something that I've been hearing.
Yeah, Bobby.
Popped in my mind two sayings that I've heard. Pain is the touchstone of progress. And I think that's what I'm hearing some of what you're saying.
No.
No?
But it can be. I mean, but we don't need pain, you know. I mean, it's not like it's, you know, it's just part of samsara, you know. So, but we can use pain as a stepping stone to developing good qualities.
Thank you.
We don't have to be controlled by it, because it really is a sensation, and it's an alarm bell. Something could be wrong, and if we know something isn't wrong, then we can ignore the alarm. like having a faulty smoke alarm. Hi, Martha. I can't tell if you've raised your hand or not. Okay, just checking.
No, it's the position of the hand that I have to have. Sorry.
Yes, that's probably very tiring. So
Yes, it is.
yeah,
It's painful.
oh, I'm sorry. Robert, you have your hand raised, perhaps.
You just said we don't need pain, but if we didn't have pain, then we wouldn't know pleasure. Well, in the end, should we not have anything?
That's just in samsara.
Okay.
A Buddha's experience of existence is just pleasure. It's just bliss. And it's not even what we know as pleasure at all. It's a, since we haven't experienced it, I can't describe it. No, but it's that it's our, this is where, continuing to try to work with understanding how things actually exist, working on our understanding of how our holding things, grasping at things to exist in a way that they do not, creates this duality of pleasure is only possible with pain. There's good and bad. There's, all of our dualistic thinking starts with this self-grasping, because as soon as we grasp with the self, there's other. The dualistic appearance arises. So slowly, slowly. All right, it's 22 after to be more precise. So how are we doing? Kind of okay? Food for thought? That's all I can do is provide a condition for more thinking and more experiencing. So just take a moment to, bring your attention inward. Just kind of notice, okay, how's my body feeling right now? How's my mind doing? Just check in. Notice if you've been holding some part of the body too tight and you're uncomfortable, I have my legs crossed. Now I'll put to sleep, So I'm getting a headache from trying to think too hard. So just kind of check in. Oh, my neck. And understanding, the more we can just be aware, oh, there I go. I've gotten off into some, I've been hooked by something. Is it leading me where I want to go? Shaking it off. Being aware of our breathing. Oh, we're one in-breath away from death. So the fact that we have another, this is good news. Oh. And of course, when we're in the midst of suffering, if that's the condition we're experiencing right now, that next breath feels challenging. We just know that if we were to stop breathing, we'd fight that too. If you pinched your nose together, you'd let go. What we want is the suffering to end, not existence to end. And that's an inner process of working with our minds, becoming more and more observant about how the subtle things that we're aware of, that the mind is aware of, can become conditions for suffering or happiness, depending on how we respond to it. The less we keep holding that the external stuff is what's controlling us, and recognize, no, it's that response to that external stuff. And maybe our response is failing us. Maybe we need to come up with different ways to respond. But being able to pause and just be. Sometimes we need to be able to just be aware, bring our awareness to all the parts that don't hurt. And that includes parts of the heart, the mind. You know. Now, I'm grateful for having a community to talk about the teachings with, you know, because I find the Buddha's view kind of different from the culture I'm in. So it's helpful for me to have this opportunity. So now we want to really bring to mind, you know, we've created some positive imprints on our mind stream that are going to ripen in a positive way in the future. And so we want to rejoice about that. You know, oh, this is good. This is good news. You know, something has been placed in my mind stream that's a little different than the way I was thinking an hour ago. Or it's just, you know, refreshed an attitude that I've been working on, or that I just know from, you know, that we've already got a habit of. You know, we can feel good about that. Rejoicing is another form of gratitude. Oh, thank goodness. And that's, I mean, to me, the expression, thank goodness, is exactly that. It's goodness. You know, all the good things that we experience is the result of goodness. Things we enjoy, the resources we have, all the things we rely upon, all of them are the result of goodness. You know, how cool is that? So, but we don't want to hoard it. We don't want it to be, oh, it's mine, thank you. Not going to share it with you. So we want to practice the mind that wants to really share it with others, you know, to hope that our whatever positive imprints or positive potentials we put on our mind stream that can ripen as positive things in the future, we want it to not exhaust until the great enlightenment when there's no suffering sentient beings at all. No. So we're going to recite the dedication prayers, and they're called dedication prayers just because we're dedicating our merits, our positive potentials we place in our mind stream to be of benefit for others. So we're dedicating those because there are prayers that are just wishes that don't have anything to dedicate, but this is not that. So I'll share the screen. May all beings everywhere, plagued by sufferings of body and mind, obtain an ocean of happiness and joy by virtue of my merits. May no living creature suffer, commit evil, or ever fall ill. May no one be afraid or belittled with a mind weighed down by depression. May the blind see forms and the deaf hear sounds. May those whose bodies are worn with toil be restored on finding repose. May the naked find clothing, the hungry find food, May the thirsty find water and delicious drinks. May the poor find wealth, those weak with sorrow find joy. May the forlorn find hope, constant happiness, and prosperity. May there be timely rains and bountiful harvests. May all medicines be effective and wholesome prayers bear fruit. May all who are sick and ill quickly be freed from their ailments. Whatever diseases there are in the world, may they never occur again. May the frightened cease to be afraid, and those bound be freed. May the powerless find power, and may people think of benefiting each other. For as long as space remains, for as long as sentient beings remain, until then, may I too remain to dispel the miseries of the world. And we'll recite the long life prayers for our teachers. So for His Holiness, the Dalai Lama, and for his healthy, happy, long life. In the land encircled by snow mountains, you are the source of all happiness and good. All powerful Chenrezig Tenzin Gyatso, please remain until samsara ends. For our spiritual director, Lama Zopa Rinpoche, you who uphold the subduer's moral way, who serve as the bountiful bearer of all, sustaining, preserving, and spreading Manjana's victorious doctrine, who masterfully accomplish magnificent prayers, honoring the three jewels, Savior, myself, and others, your disciples, please, please live long. Thank you very, very